Hey, what's going on? This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. It's a sneak show for January 8th, the Wednesday. Norman, London, Mike in Buffalo. The Leafs on a 5-game run, 2 straight wins over the Fly Guys, headed into some tumultuous times, great opponents to come. So can the Leafs continue their win streak, or will it all fall flat when reality sets in playing against upper-tier opponents? Mr. Augello, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I mean, most Maple Leaf fans, I'm sure, are very happy at the way the team has played, and they should be. But, I still, of course, me being the glass is half empty person that I am, I see a few things that concern me. We mentioned before we went live the, William Nylander, anybody who's an observer of this team, has to say he's been arguably either him or Marner the most valuable player this season. But the last, I would say, 2 weeks, he has not been Dr. Nylander. He's been Mr. Rielly.
Right.
And something is off. I don't know if it's injury. I don't know if he's ill. He just has not, not taking passes crisply, fanning on shots. It's now it could be just, a bad stretch, and everybody has those. But he's been remarkably consistent throughout most of last season and this season, and only in this last stretch has he been sort of inconsistent and off, and that's concerning.
This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. We have some 24s on the ground, massive discounts. I'm doing another deal with an Converse. We're going to deliver his truck next week. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. It means a lot. At Norm at Oak Ridge Ford. You can get at my Facebook page too. It is blowing up. Search Norm at Oak Ridge Ford on Facebook. Give me a like, and then you'll see all the deals that I have, and everything is associated with this podcast. Year 7 for what Mike and I are doing on the YouTube platform. It means so much that you're along for the ride. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. Look, William Nylander can grip it a little tight right now because Mr. Tavares is on fire. Over a point per game, 20 goals this season. Talk about a resurgence. We can align this ascent with the inevitability of having to sign a new contract and all of the things that go along with it. That could have, some effect as to why he's playing so well. But how about a guy who's just in the right place at the right time with the right coach, who's found the right energy and who might be fit as hell, and all of, coming together in a season that may actually finally bear some fruit for the squad, Mike?
Well, I can't remember, and I apologize for who made the comparison, even though they're not the same type of player. But Craig Berube with Ryan O'Reilly in St. Louis, O'Reilly's not the fastest player in the league. He's a good face-off guy. He's a solid veteran. There was a connection there with Berube and that type of veteran pivot. And Tavares is that type of player. Now he's not a defensive stalwart like O'Reilly. He's more of an offensive player. But whatever positives John Tavares has had over his, now this is his 7th season in Toronto, they've been accentuated by Craig Berube's usage of him. And you have to say that in the absence of Austin Matthews, where he was out for, I think it was 14 or 15 games, John Tavares picked up the slack offensively up the middle on the power play. And, when you have your number 2 center behind him being Pontus Holmberg, every team is putting their top checker on John Tavares, and John Tavares now has 20 goals. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Who would have thunk 20 goals at the halfway point of 2024-2025 for number 91? I didn't think it would be the case. I figured now he would start to regress a little bit, but still, be an important player for what this team is trying to accomplish. Is this borrowed time, Mike, or is this a resurgence for John Tavares?
I mean, I think he's motivated, obviously, because I think he wants to stay in Toronto. I think he wants to prove to the organization that he still can contribute. do I expect him to end up with 40? No, I think he'll probably tail off a little bit in the second half, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe his career high in Toronto was 47 goals in his first year. I don't expect him to get anywhere close to that, but if they get 30, 35 out of him, they're in pretty good shape. And I haven't doubted that he is not going to be back. For all the doubt that I have about Mitch Marner re-signing in Toronto, I have very little doubt that John Tavares wants to be here. And based on the way he's playing, the organization would be foolish that they wouldn't want him back.
Like the content, subscribe to the channel, guys. Check out Convo Shorts. We break up our shows, and if you see something you like, share it with your friends, because when those things blow up, they represent our podcast in so many ways, and it means so much. 5 straight wins for the Maple Leafs. This has been just a terrific season. 17 wins on home ice, another win away from Scotiabank Arena in Philadelphia. A real test is coming up, Mike. But, again, if the concept is keep the puck out of our net, play defensive hockey, and we'll jump on our opportunities, especially with number 34, integrating himself back into a mix with guys like Matthew Nyes and Mitch Marner, who's scoring a ton. You got to think you like the chances of this team, maybe not winning all of these games ahead, but staying in them, getting their points, and maintaining their place on the top tier of the Atlantic Division. Your thoughts on that? Well,
we've seen this act before. We've been down this road before. We've been at this point in the season where this team is. Now, in most seasons, it's been a little earlier than this. It's been, December, where they're, top in the league or top at the conference. And, you have to say that maybe things are a little bit different because Berube is promoting and putting in action a more responsible two-way game. But I still think that, there's reason for skepticism.
You're Mike Augello. Augello of Cheektowaga, New York.
Yeah. Give everybody my address to Norm. but no, but yeah, he's right behind the sun. No. But no, I just, this team is different in the fact that there are different players, but they have tended to go down this road over and over. And until I'm provided with evidence that they won't go down this road, I'm going to believe that they'll go down the road. Now, they're a playoff team. There's no doubt. They're probably one of the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. No doubt in my mind. Are they as good as Florida? Well, Florida is the incumbent Stanley Cup champion. So no
one's as good as Florida until Florida is unseeded.
Right, exactly. And Toronto isn't as good as Florida, even if Toronto wins the Atlantic Division. Because, great, you win the Atlantic Division. You won the Canadian Division. Where the hell did that get you? It's like it got you nowhere because you lost to the Canadians.
Yeah.
So until you prove it, and everybody said, well, geez, Mike just says the same goddamn thing over and over. No. Until you win,
right,
I won't believe that you're going to win.
Right.
So prove it to me, and then I'll believe you.
Are there signs? And again, you're skeptical by nature. Are there signs that lead you to believe this team is going to go into enough of a tailspin to bring it back down to earth?
No, and that's why some people think that this is different, and it maybe it smacks differently. This is the best top 4 that they've had,
right,
in over since the McCabe Caberlet days. This is you've got a solid top 4 with Ekman Larson, McCabe, Rielly, and Tanev. That now offensively they're not fantastic. They hadn't scored a goal since November the 30th, and then
the Leafs don't need scoring from the blue line to
it helps. It helps, especially in the playoffs. But as long as you're playing defensively,
in lieu of shitty defense, I don't want it.
Yeah, as long as you're playing defensively responsible and you're keeping it simple, and you're getting the puck out of the zone. then then everything else takes care of itself. Now, last night they were lucky to win because they had 6 shots on goal after 2 periods. Joseph Woll kept them in the game. Now they scored on those 6 shots, but most games, you're not going to win a game when you have 6 shots in 2 periods.
But the Flyers threw the kitchen sink at the Leafs. The Flyers are inferior to the Maple Leafs. It was the second of back-to-back. You knew that the Flyers had the advantage being on home ice. And what usually happens when the Leafs play 24 hours after winning a game? They typically fall to defeat. They somehow figured out a way to get the 2 points. That's a win in and of itself, is it not?
Well, they weathered a storm.
Right.
They got really good goaltending from Joseph Woll, and the only 2 goals that were scored were as a direct result of Connor Timmins losing the puck and not clearing the front of the net. And Timmins hadn't played in a few, I think 3 weeks, because Philippe Myers had been playing so well, but because McCabe got hurt, they had to put Timmins in the lineup. So maybe he shakes off the rust and he plays like he played previously, but you're not going to win many games when you have so few offensive opportunities in the first 2 periods. They turned it on in the third, and they got a couple really good saves from Woll late in regulation, and they won over a team that's probably not going to be a playoff team. But you play that against a team like Tampa or against a team like Washington, you're going to lose. So
the Leafs have been known to play down to the competition. And Mike, if the offensive chances are limited, having number 34 on the ice on a line with number 16, you know that they may have limited chances, but they typically make the most of those chances when they're on. Austin Matthews, 7 points in 3 games? I mean, he's the beneficiary of playing with a peak Mitch Marner and Matthew Nyes coming to life. But why the hell else wouldn't you put him with guys who can facilitate success for him, right? I mean, he is one of the greatest scorers of this generation, but that doesn't mean that after being away for as long as he has it, he's just going to come back out and pick it up. You got to put him in the right position, and it's looked pretty good. Mike, Chad Doyle, Tavares has been as good a captain since he stopped being the captain. You understand what he's saying there? I mean, the leadership on the ice in terms of his play. Do you think there's a pressure that has rescinded since he handed over the seat at Matthews?
No, I don't think that's a factor in anything. I mean, could you say, well, the weight of captaincy was off of his shoulders? I think he wanted the captaincy. Now, do you know what Tavares wants? Sorry to interrupt you. How do we know what Tavares wants? He is just as gray as they get. I mean, he'd be a great poker player, right? He's I don't know if he's emotionless. I doubt it, but he just doesn't seem to show much emotion. That's good, bad in both respects. Well, I mean, yeah, to a point, I get what you're saying, but no, when he came to Toronto, he came to Toronto because he wanted to be a Leaf. He was a captain with the Islanders, right. And I don't think he shrunk from the responsibility of being captain. Now, all things being equal, if Austin Matthews wasn't on the team, I don't think he would have relinquished the captaincy. He recognized that Austin Matthews is entering the prime of his career. He's a leader. He's the best player on this team. He's one of the best players in the league. And Tavares, read the landscape and said, okay, I can pass the torch, but he doesn't want to leave Toronto. And I think he's still respected in that room. And I think the only thing that he's doing right now is he recognizes that had he had a bad year, it would have given a lot of credibility to those who said, just, move past 91, spend the money someplace else. But, if they get him on what we expected him to take on a new deal, which is, say, in the $4 to $5 million range, and he scores 35 goals, it's the best contract in the league since like Joe Pavelski signed a deal with Dallas at a lesser amount, or Patrice Bergeron signed a lesser deal with the Boston Bruins. Those are the type of deals that make you be able to be a contender. And, there is going to be a big payday for a guy wearing number 23 with Matthew Nyes, and that's not even considering what's going to happen with number 16, and we don't know what's going to happen. But they're going to have to pay Nyes. They're going to have to pay him not like Matthews money, but they're going to have to pay him significant money, and the money that they save on Tavares is going to go right into 23's pocket.
Name a team that's won everything and paid everybody perfectly and had everybody come back and continue to win.
Well, I mean, the teams that have won, that have won multiple cups, most of them won before they had to pay the players. Chicago, with Kane and Taves, they were on the bridge deals. They weren't on the big money deals. They had Keefe and they had Seabrook locked up long term. Right. They had to trade off the guys like Dustin Byfuglien and Chris Versteeg, and then they ended up paying Kane and Taves. And once that happened, then that's been my argument for the last few years about paying 4 players half of your salary cap. You can't win that way.
But the Leafs drafted in the same way that the Blackhawks drafted in the mid-2000s, right? You get your star, you add. It just didn't work out. The success didn't come. I mean, the real success didn't come in the same fashion for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, but
demonstrated, 10 years earlier by the Blackhawks.
But the Leafs skipped a step. Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane were in lockstep in terms of signing the same type of deals. Taves, I think, was 06 to 05 draft, and Kane was the top pick in the 07 draft. But they signed the same amount, the same deal at the same time with Chicago, and they signed a bridge deal. I think it was a 5-year deal at around $7.5 million. They didn't, with Toronto, you went Marner, Nylander, Matthews, all went from ELC right to big money. With Nylander, it was only $7 million. With Matthews, it was 11.6, and with Marner, it was 10.9. You skipped that step where you were saving money on the bridge deal, and you could pay other players to surround them. You went right to paying them big money, and look what happened. You ended up with, Justin Hall in your top 4.
I know how much you love that guy. Who does he play for now? The Wings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every time the Leafs burn him, he's playing for the Wings.
What is he? Is he, a top pairing defenseman in Detroit?
He's making $3.5 million. So there's more general managers that are stupid that pay that guy bad money after good.
Mikey, every time we relitigate the Leafs history, we come back to the same results. Fuck all in terms of accolades. Nobody won anything. So, here we are, a team at the halfway point that is really encouraging. It really is. I mean, you have a goaltender who's burgeoning and chomping at the bit to show that he can maintain a status as a number 1 as long as his health is in check. A guy who came in from a championship team, that pedigree is there. He's injured right now, but if he's healthy, I have no problem with him playing. And then you have 2 other dudes, a legacy guy who's won cups, who just like to collect a paycheck and maybe just kind of hang around a little bit, and a guy who's monstrous. I mean, between the pipes, a defensive-minded group of defenders that are kind of emboldened by a head coach who has a defensive mindset, right? And a group of offensive talent that really hasn't busted out yet. And the team is a +17. They're one of the top 5 in the entire league, sitting atop the division. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Jeremy W., an OG, I believe he's from the East Coast, New Brunswick or something like that. Jeremy, thanks for being with us for so long. Any concern about Rielly? I mean, he scores an overtime goal against the Flyers in Toronto. Gets off the schneid a little bit. I mean, what are we talking about? What kind of concern is he alluding to, Mike?
Well, I think he's concerned about the fact that I'm just looking up the stats right now, 20 points in 42 games. So right now he's averaging out to a 40-point defenseman. I think he's a 50-point defenseman. Is he 70? Is he ever going to hit 70 points again? I don't know. He's past 30 years old. I mean, he's still logging the most minutes of any defender. I'm pretty sure he logs more minutes than Tanev. I mean, Tanev plays the PK, but Rielly plays most power plays, first unit, and plays top pairing. So I mean, I think he could very easily have a strong second half. The only thing I've noticed with Rielly is he doesn't seem as fleet of foot, so he might be battling something, and he's, they need him in the lineup every night, so that might be a factor. But I'm not overly concerned. If he drops off even more in the second half, then I think it's reason for concern. But right now, I'm not.
Imagine him leading the charge amongst the group that are dedicated to keeping the puck out of their own net, and it helping to make the Leafs a better overall team. But what he adds to the squad in terms of its overall value, he loses personally value-wise. What the hell is wrong with that? I mean, especially being at this stage of the game, right? I mean, I don't think nobody expected 20 goals from John Tavares at this point of the season. I mean, there's a multitude of reasons why he is at this stage. We'll take it, and producing to this level. But if what he brought helped the team at this point of where he is at as a hockey player, knowing the end is closer than the beginning, I mean, we've got to consider that kind of stuff as opposed to just railing on a Morgan Rielly, who is a contentious player with most of the fan base anyhow. Who gives a shit? What if he put up 80 points? What the fuck does that mean if the team is, an 85-point team and just kind of barely getting into the playoffs?
Well, I mean, Erik Karlsson was a 100-point defenseman and won a Norris Trophy with San Jose. San Jose was the last place team, and
right.
He's a terrible defensive defenseman. He's a great offensive defenseman, but
right.
But I mean, I think the thing that people are concerned about is Morgan Rielly's -10 plus minus, which is the worst on the team, and I think everybody except Nylander and maybe one other player are pluses. So that stands out. Is he having a great year? No. They took him off the first power play and they went with a 5-forward power play. That didn't work. Now he's back as a point guy in the power play. Like I said, am I concerned overly? No. If he continues to play like this throughout the rest of the regular season, then I mean there might be a reason for concern, but I don't think it's. Let's just say there are bigger fish to fry when it comes to the concerns of the Toronto Maple Leafs than Morgan Rielly. I think he's still a very good defenseman, and I think he'll show up when he's needed when he needs to show up.
Zach, when are we getting to Mike's rant on Ryan Reaves?
Okay. So here we go.
Set the stage here. And
here you go.
I do mean to punch down, right? I mean, a fourth liner. Why are we jumping all over a fourth liner? Well, what I want from that fourth liner is a guy who is a complete shit disturber who beats people up. And in the last, 12 games, Ryan Reaves has 15 penalty minutes. All in one game against Edmonton mid-November, right? So what really pissed me off is that he did sweet fuck all to Garnet Hathaway in the second of the back-to-back. Like nothing. Pushed him a little bit. I mean, this guy was implicated in the injury of a key player on the defense for your squad. Like, I'm sorry, your job, I mean, when you get the limited amount of ice time, 7 minutes a night, is to antagonize, instigate, rile it up, do something. If you get suspended, who gives a shit? The guy's done sweet F all, no penalty minutes, barely any shots, 1 point. Sure, he's on the fourth line, but Mike, I mean, you and I both agree, and I'm sure if the OGs and converts really look deep into their souls and were able to expel their affection for this guy, they would come to terms with the fact that there are many other players who could not only take his spot and be more effective, but actually do the things that we're wanting this guy to do. And, oh, by the way, he is paid to do. You're up, Mr. Augello.
Okay. I found it hard to believe, and maybe, my memory was slipping. He has not had a fight this regular season. In 42 games, he has not had one single fight. He had a fight in the preseason, and the 15 minutes that you mentioned, great. He's not taking any minor penalties. That's great. The 15 minutes was a 5 for charging, I think it was, or a hit to the head, and a game misconduct, and then the big suspension. He is a worthless, useless player. And I say that not as a personal attack against him, but okay, he's a fourth liner. He doesn't penalty kill. He hits when he can catch somebody, but most of the time he can't. And he's a liability on this team. And, no, I don't care. He's a great guy in the locker room. I don't care if he's the team's DJ or he's the team's cheerleader and you see him on the scoreboard at Scotiabank Arena. Whoop-de-frickin-do. I care about what the guy does on the ice.
And Mike, check this out. Michael Borland. I know you don't like Reaves, but why do you think he hasn't fought? No one will go him. So then grab somebody and beat the shit out of him.
No, I mean, but okay. Are you telling me that Garnet Hathaway wouldn't have obliged him? The only thing Reaves did, he played 13 shifts, 6 minutes and 52 seconds yesterday. They showed the video in the first period during a line change, and he shoved Hathaway, and Hathaway looked back and didn't do anything. Are you telling me if Reaves had dropped the gloves that Hathaway wouldn't have obliged him? Of course he would. Of course he would. And he wouldn't have had drawn a 2 minutes for instigating if he drops the gloves and the other guy drops the gloves. He, for some reason, he's the sheriff out there. Everybody's scared of him. Baloney.
Nobody even knows.
The only guy who fought yesterday in a game. The only guy who fought yesterday was Connor Dewar.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sorry. The job of Ryan Reaves is to fight. Is to be physical, right. Is to hit. He doesn't fight. He's fairly physical, but not overly so. And he can't catch anybody. And he's a liability on the fourth line. The fourth line is better with David Kampf, Connor Dewar, and Steven Lorenz than it is with Ryan Reaves in the lineup. And the $3.5 that they pay, $1.35 million that they pay him can be buried. Most of it. When they put him on waivers, they can go out and get a hitter like Lorenz at the deadline, or a center. Put the money towards center help, or put it toward a bottom pairing defenseman. Carrying that guy on this roster past the deadline is abject failure.
Do you know who hits? Simon Benoit. Yes. Simon Benoit. He's really building up a credibility in my books. Really. And, that's a guy who looks like he's got his teammates' backs, right? Are we underestimating the fear that opponents have for Ryan Reaves? Do we just not notice it? I mean, is this just an unspoken thing when this guy gets on the ice, the opposition quivers and we haven't paid attention, Mike? I mean, is Ryan Reaves really the unsung hero of this team's success this season?
Somebody has to look this up. I don't have the time to do it right now. Was the last fight that he fought in the regular season, was it the fight against Rempe? Because that might be. And if that's the case, if he wants to go out on that, great. You went out on that fight against Matt Rempe. But I'm sorry, you have 2 more years. You had 2 more years left on your contract. I'll continue to say he should be bought out at the end of this year. Or maybe he retires, but there's no purpose. He should not play a playoff game. And honestly, I would not use him in the remainder of the regular season. I don't care what, they can care about what he does to the esprit de corps of the team and the locker room. But you know what? He can be a cheerleader on the Toronto Marlies roster. They can carry him. He can travel with the team and wave pom poms, but he's not a good player anymore.
Mike, if I misrepresented your question, my apologies. But there are 2 camps when it comes to the impressions that we get of Ryan Reaves. Right, the first camp, Mike and I are in. He just doesn't do what we want him to do. The other camp is, well, he doesn't do anything because everybody's afraid of him, right? Just his presence alone is the reason why the Leafs generally have calm. My thing is the Leafs are good enough to handle, some of the bullshit that he's going to bring that will stir it up with the opponents enough to strike real fear and maybe cause a little bit of problem in the aftermath. but you take the Rielly Grigg incident. The Senators started Rielly. He was on the ice for the puck drop. The fans wanted that guy's head on a platter. The Leafs did shit in that first shift, did nothing the rest of the game. You're telling me Ryan Reaves can't just go punch him in the head, right? Because that was a very, very contentious situation. What happened with Morgan Rielly, and there had to be some payback. Not just because, we want retribution. It's the fucking Ottawa Senators. And then what happened with Garnet Hathaway, I mean, look, stand up for your team.
Well,
stand up for your team. That's your job. And if you get kicked out of the game, you get suspended, you're going to endear yourself to the fans so much more than just this idea that your presence is the reason why the Leafs are winning. I mean, it's bizarre. Do your job.
Well, you've already been suspended 5 games for stupidity. At least you can be suspended 5 games for doing something that's constructive for your team, and that's protecting your teammates. Now, we don't know if what Hathaway did to Jake McCabe was purposeful. McCabe was concussed. They were...
Mike, real quick, guys have to fight because they lay legal hits in today's NHL.
Right, but I'm not. I'm talking specifically about Hathaway. Right, Hathaway and McCabe got into a tussle. Hathaway won, but as Hathaway was going to the ice, he either by accident or on purpose drove either his knee or his skate into the head of McCabe, and McCabe is concussed. So by putting Reaves into the lineup in Philadelphia, Craig Berube is saying, I'm expecting this game to get ugly, and I'm going to protect my team by putting Reaves in there. But Reaves needs to do his job. And
how complicit is Berube with the lack of anything from Reaves? He's putting him in the lineup. Is he not expecting more, or are we just out to lunch believing that Reaves is supposed to do something that the coach has asked him not to do? I don't get it.
I think the coach wants him to do what he wants him to be smart, but he also wants him to do his job. And if he thinks he can do his job without dropping the gloves, great. But I don't think he's accomplishing anything. I think all he's doing is, I'm Ryan Reaves, and you should be scared of me. And, when somebody like Matt Rempe, who's a kid trying to prove what he's, that he's king of the jungle, he dropped his gloves. But do you think Arbor Xhekaj is afraid of Ryan Reaves? Do you think Hathaway is afraid of Ryan Reaves?
Right.
No. The only way that they're afraid of him is if he proves he's willing to do what he needs to do. And if somebody takes a run, and this is here will be the test in the second half of this season. If somebody takes a run at Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner or any one of the valuable players on this team, and Ryan Reaves does nothing, I want to see what Craig Berube does at that point, because fans will be screaming their head off. What is the purpose of this guy on your roster?
Yeah. I mean, for Reaves, I want to see a guy who is tight checking, throws the body. It plays a little bit on the edge. And every time he's on the ice, all 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 4 minutes, we know he's there. Michael Borland, thanks for your contributions tonight. I think I was more getting at the Leafs are playing close games this year, and closer than in the Leafs past. Taking on an instigator and costing us a game would be worse than just not fighting. So again, devil's advocate here. Is Reaves looking at what has taken place and believing it's really not worth going to that extent? It's just the situation is not high energy enough and not serious enough for me to drop the gloves and do something that could potentially be detrimental to the team. It's just, we haven't gotten to that point yet because things have been so good. Last comment to you and we'll get out of here.
You've had games against Ottawa, and you just mentioned Rielly Grigg. You've had games against Boston with Marchand and with that team of weasels. You've had games against Florida, who we know are a team that plays extremely physical, and he's done nothing in all these games.
Right.
And I think in most of them, the Leafs have been the team on the receiving end of the physicality. Now, they're bigger, and they can't be as easily intimidated as they have been in the past. But the purpose of Ryan Reaves is to be a defender of the skilled players on this team. You know, you've got Steven Lorenz and Simone Benoit and Max Pacioretty out there hitting everything that moves. Ryan Reaves, if he can catch them, needs to hit them, but he needs to hit them with his fists, and he hasn't done that all year.
Craig Berube calls to Cheektowaga, New York. Mom picks up the phone. You're downstairs working out. Berube gets you on the line and says, Mike, who do I replace Reaves with? What do you do? What do you tell him?
Well, I mean, last game, he took out Nick Robertson, and I understand why he took out Nick Robertson for Reaves, because Philly had the last chance, and Philly was going to be more physical. With Reaves doing nothing, I would have put Nick Robertson back in. Nick Robertson at least can skate and score goals.
Right. Zach, Domi, Nice, McCabe, and Benoit will all show up long before Reaves can skate over. You know, again, we're punching down a little bit here, Mike, but it's real. It's a real thing. And when push comes to shove, if you can't get this guy to stand up for his crew because that's his job, I mean, why are you paying him? Why is he here? The Leafs have.
But let me just respond to that with one short sentence.
Right.
It's not. You don't want those players to do that.
Right.
You want him to do that. That's why you got him.
Yeah, Zach also here, or Leafs trade Rielly and his brother to Utah. It is almost my new team. Zach, Rielly, real under the radar, disappearing. Let's give it a few more games before we talk about 88, and we'll go from there. So Carolina coming up tomorrow. You've got the Vancouver, Dallas, New Jersey, and the Habs red hot. I mean, the next 5 games are a serious test, not to mention you've got Tampa on the horizon, another game with Ottawa in Ottawa. We know how that typically goes. So, you know, hang on to your hats here. It's been a nice little run, 5 straight wins, but there's a good chance over the next 5-6 games, the Leafs have very few wins if they don't batten down the hatches and keep moving forward. Mike will we'll digest it, unpack it, talk about it, you know, lament it, get excited about it on the Sunday Spectacular to come. But I got to ask you, Broncos, Bills, are Josh Allen and the crew for real this year? Like, I'm hoping so. That's my team, and I understand your built-in skepticism with anything Buffalo, Toronto sports related. But I mean, that Bronco, I mean, they beat the shit out of the Chiefs, who were sitting everybody. There's a little bit of momentum there, Mike.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the Bills should win, but you know, the Leafs should have beat the Canadians. Right. They didn't. You know, that's what sports is about. It's the best team doesn't always win. So I think the Bills will beat the Broncos, but can I see a road where the Broncos beat them? Sure. So we'll see.
Yeah, it would be an unmitigated disaster if that's the case. And I can't imagine people at that stadium being too happy about it. When's the new facility going to be ready? For next year?
Not next season, but I think the opening of 26-27.
Ooh, I'm so excited for the heated roof.
Yeah.
God bless Buffalo. OG's Converse, thanks for being here. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. Do me a solid. Hit the share button on this content and send it to your friends. Let's tell everybody what we're doing. It means so much that you're here. We just thought we would do a sneak show. It was supposed to be 20 minutes. We doubled the time because we got into a bunch of things as we typically do. And we have a lot of fun doing it. If you're looking for a vehicle, help the podcast, come to me at Norman Oakridge Ford. Check out Norman Oakridge Ford on Facebook. I will get a deal done for you. Does not matter where you live in Ontario. I will take care of you like I do with the OGs and Converse every single month. Mr. Augello, where can we find you outside of the Leafs Convo?
Hockey news, writing for the main site and Buffalo Sabres stuff, but more Leaf stuff to come.
Okay. For Mike, I'm Norm. OG's Converse, thanks so much. We'll see you Sunday. The Leafs Convo for Oakridge Ford is out.